Hey guys, Cloudy Hayes back for another video. Season 1 is finally here, and maybe it's time for an updated UI to go along with it. In this video, I'm going to teach you guys how to build an entire UI from scratch. No matter your playstyle, whether you're pushing for cutting edge, or running a weekly heroic clear with your friends, or perhaps just pushing IO and Mythic Plus, this UI will cover it all. I'm also going to go over some interface settings and everything else needed to make a perfect UI. This UI works for both raiding and Mythic Plus, and works for all roles, tanks, healers, and DPS classes. This is a nice lightweight UI that has room for adding additional WeakAuras if that's something you want to do. And just to verify, we will not be using ElfUI. For anyone that doesn't know what ElfUI is a user interface add-on designed to replace the default Blizzard UI. I've used it before and it really is a good add-on that many people do use, including a lot of high-end Mythic Raiders, but it's just not for me. Personally, I prefer to build my own UI using various add-ons in Blizzard's edit mode. The first thing we're going to do is take a look at a few different UI setups for raiding and Mythic Plus. Then we'll go into it a little bit and talk about it, then we'll set it up from scratch. In the description of this video will be all the add-ons and WeakAuras needed to build this UI. There will also be a link to my paste bin where you can copy all my import strings so you can easily copy all my profiles from various add-ons. I recommend having all the add-ons downloaded and the WeakAuras imported before you start building the UI, so you can follow along a lot easier. Once you downloaded all the add-ons, then go to my paste bin and then you can import all the profiles. But before we build, let's take a look at the UI and talk about it just a little bit. So this UI here can be set up a few different ways. Personally, I like to use the default Blizzard raid frames for when I'm healing. But if you do use Voodoo or Cell or any other healing add-on, you can just put your frames here in the same spot. If you're a DPS, you can just move the raid frames to the left side of the screen and adjust the dimensions to be slightly smaller, since you don't need to pay attention to the raid as closely as a healer does. You could also set up different profiles for each scenario depending on what class you're playing, healer, DPS, or whatever you're on. It's always good to have different profiles set up in your edit mode, so you can easily switch between UIs. You're probably wondering what this black bar on the bottom of the UI is and why it's there. This is an add-on called Sun Art, and it's absolutely amazing. This black bar allows me to put frames down here to free up more space on the screen. Having this black bar does not take away from our view range. The add-on adjusts the viewport so you don't lose any view range as you see here. So that way we can still see the same amount of area around us, but at the same time we have a little nice spot to tuck some things away. This just helps clear up the screen, allowing us to see mechanics much easier. You can adjust the height of the bar as well, so if you want it smaller, you can easily do that. This UI is set up to be centralized around the character itself, meaning all the information and frames we need are close to our character. This helps us focus on what we're doing and be able to see if we're standing in fire without having to move our eyes around too much. I moved the map down below to free up more space up top, and we can see the map without having to move our eyes to the top of the screen during combat. I also adjusted the bag and menu position and made them a little bit smaller. During a boss fight, we don't need to use our bags or the menu, so there's no point in having them full size. We have our HUD tooltip in this nice little space here so it doesn't get in the way of anything. I personally don't like when it overlaps a bunch of frames. Then we have our party frames just above our action bar for Mythic Plus. This makes it much easier to keep track of the group and see what's going on. This UI setup will work for any role. You don't need to move much around. And if you use custom raid frames, then you can just put it in the same spot where we have the raid frames already. This is a very straightforward UI. It's very lightweight. There's not a lot to it, but it has everything you need. We talked about the UI a little bit, but let's get into the nitty gritty and put it together. First thing we need to do is set up Sun Art, the black bar at the bottom of the screen. Once you have it downloaded, press Escape, go to Options, then the add-on tabs at the top. Click on Sun Art. Go to the Panels tab and click the top panel. You just want to unselect it so it's not there anymore. Then go to the bottom panel. Under Advanced Settings, change the theme to Solid Color. Then you want to check the box that says Resize Viewport. This way we don't have any of our screen cut off. Also make sure Auto Stretch is checked. Then you want to set the panel thickness anywhere from 14 to 17, that's up to you. Personally, mine is set to 17 so I have more space down below. Now that you have the black bar set up, let's build our UI from scratch. First thing you're going to want to do is create a new profile. Start by selecting Modern Preset at the bottom of the list. Then click New Layout. Save it to Raid Heal or whatever you want. Make sure Advanced Options are checked. What we're going to do before we start is move some things around. Go ahead and select everything in the HUD settings. Move the action bars out of the way, and then move status bars 1 and 2 to the top of the screen. Then take all the frames that are on the bottom of the screen and move them out of the way and just somewhere else. Now we're going to move our action bars 1, 2, and 3. Make sure it's all the way down and centered. Stack the other two on top. Then click Action Bar 1 and open Settings. We're going to select Hide Bar Art and Hide Bar Scrolling. This helps keep things neat. Next, we're going to move our cast bar above our action bar. I usually turn off Snap Grid so I can adjust it just a little bit more. Next, click your bags. Change orientation to vertical and the size to 80%. Then put it next to your action bar and snap it to the bottom of the screen. If you notice, it's centered in these grid squares. Next, we're going to move our map down, as long as you've downloaded Sexy Map. Now hit Save in the UI. Then exit out of the UI, and we're going to adjust the settings for the minimap. Press Escape, go to Options, and then the Add-ons tab. Go to Sexy Maps. Click the actual word Sexy Maps above where it says Borders. Set the scale to 1.04, or whatever works for your computer size. Then just below you will see presets. Now select Simple Square. Next, go to the Buttons section. Here you can adjust your minimap buttons. You can make certain buttons always show, never show, or hover. For standard buttons, I use hover for most of them. For dynamic buttons, I have all of them set to always, and for my add-on buttons, I have most of them set to never show. This part, you will need to go through your add-ons and decide which ones you want to show and which ones you want to hide. Now that we have our minimap all set up, let's continue with the UI build. Open up edit mode again and make sure you're on the correct profile. Move the chat frame to the bottom left corner as tight as it will go. You can adjust the size to your liking. Make sure you do have Snap Grid on. Next, select the player frame and adjust the size to 125%, or whatever works for your computer size. Then you're going to snap it so it's directly below the center line and the end of the frame lines up with the action bars below. Do the same with the target frame on the adjacent side. Move your HUD settings out of the way if needed. Before we continue, let's clean up a few things. Move your encounter bar directly on top of your cast bar. Move your vehicle exit button to the top left of your action bar. Same with stance bar, pet bar, and poses bar. Archaeology bar you can put wherever you want. Next, you want to move your extra action ability button. You can put this wherever you want, but personally I like mine right here above my action bar. Then move your talking heads to the top left of the screen so it's out of the way. I personally don't like when dialogue pops up during a Mythic keystone and it covers my action bars. So that's why I moved talking heads to the top left of my screen. Now in the HUD settings, let's turn a few things off. Turn off everything in the MISC section. In the combat section, turn off everything except buffs and debuffs and cast bar. Then in the frames section, turn off arena and boss frames. Now we have more room to finish building our UI. Select focus frame and move it directly below our player frames. While selected on the focus frame, select the box Use Larger Frame. Now go back to your party frames and check the box that says Use Raid Style Party Frames. Then select Horizontal Layout and drag the party frames to snap in the center, just below your player frames. Then adjust the frame width and height to look something like this. On the bottom right of your screen, select your menu frame. Set the menu size to 80% and the eye size to 75%, and make sure it's snapped into the bottom right corner nice and tight. Now select the objective tracker and set the opacity to 0, and set the height to 400, and move it to the top left of your screen. And make sure to hit save as we're going along. Next, we're going to move our side action bars 4 and 5. If your grid is set to 70, you can count 6.5 grid blocks up from the bottom of the screen, and that's where the bottom of action bar 4 and 5 will start. Make sure it's snapped nice and tight against the edge. Next, we are going to slightly adjust our buffs and debuffs. All we're doing is moving them over to the right just a little bit, snapping them to the red line that you can see here. The UI is starting to look pretty good at this point. Now we're going to move our raid frames. If you use custom raid frames, you can skip this step and just put your raid frames in the open space here between player frames and target frames. But if you don't use an add-on for custom raid frames, then continue on. Select the raid frames and set it to raid size 25. Adjust the height and the width to look something like this, or however you like it, to be honest. We want our raid frames to be centered, but when we snap it, it's centering to a 25-man raid. And Mythic raids are 20. So with that said, what you want to do is center the raid frames on this pink line to sit directly between groups 2 and 3. You might have to turn snap to elements off to get it where you want. It might look off-centered when you have it like this, but when you're inside of a 20-man raid, it's centered, trust me. Again, make sure to save your work. If you're a tanker or DPS, you can put your raid frames off to the left and just make the size slightly smaller. From here, you just need to have all the add-ons and import all the profiles, and the UI should look very similar to mine. The objective menu is not needed in raids, so if you downloaded the add-on Hide Objective Tracker, you can toggle it on and off by using /tot. If you imported my Method Raid Tools profile, it should all look like this and have your combat and battle rest timer next to your action bars and your raid cooldowns at the top of the screen. If you imported the healer mana WeakAura, you can put it in this open space here. Then as it goes for the ability timeline, you can move it wherever fits best for you, but personally I like it in this area. I also adjust the scale down by using the group scale here. If you followed along so far, your UI should look something like this. If you downloaded Omni CD and imported my settings, it should also look the same as you see here. You can move the interrupt tracker around wherever you want it. Whenever you're inside of a dungeon, just make sure to disable your raid cooldowns by typing /RTCD so they're not in the way, or just turn the add-on off while in a dungeon. When I'm playing a tank or a DPS character, I like to move my raid frames to a different location. Option A, you can move the raid frames manually depending on what class you're playing, or option B, you can create a second profile. If you like option B, then go ahead and open up edit mode. Make sure you have the UI that we just built selected, then press the green button Create New Layout. This will copy our current UI layout. Name this UI General Use. Make sure character specific layout is not selected so you can use this account wide. While on the new profile, select your raid frames and drag them to the left side of the screen. You can adjust the height and the width to be a little bit smaller, then save. Now you have two UI builds that you can swap between easily. You guys can easily tweak things around to the way you like it as well. Add some different WeakAuras in there, and maybe some other add-ons that you might need. Let's also take a look at a few settings. Press escape, go to options, then go to interface. Scroll down to raid frames and you'll see where it says display class colors. This is a good option to have if you want your raid frames to have class colors. Then go to action bar settings. Make sure action bars are locked. Then go to combat. You can choose self highlight if you want. There are quite a few different options when it comes to self highlight, so check them out. They definitely help out a little bit. Next, if you want to scroll down, you'll see mouse over casts. When you check this box, it allows you to mouse over any frame or person and cast spells without clicking on it. This makes it much easier to heal in raids and dungeons. And also so you don't have to make mouse over macros. But if you use Voodoo, Cell, or any healing add-on, then don't bother with a setting. In the same category, at the very bottom, you will see Enable Action Targeting. Personally, I like having this setting on. It helps me out a lot in Mythic Plus when mobs are dying fast and deselecting. But I do recommend highlighting over the option and read the tooltip to see if it's something you want or not. This is completely up to you. I do recommend that you guys go through every single one of the gameplay settings and read them all over one by one. I can almost guarantee you will find something new that you've never seen before. I'm also going to go over a few other things before we wrap this up. So we did move our objective tracker to the top left of the screen. This will overlap with the raid cooldown menu, so you need to make sure to toggle it off when you're in a raid. Or you could adjust the position of the objective tracker and move it down a little bit. Another thing, when using sexy maps, make sure you have Use Global Profiles selected. This way the map location and setup will be the same on all your characters. I really do hope you guys find this UI helpful and you have an easy time setting it up. If you have any questions about the UI or need any help setting it up, please post in the comments. I do answer every single comment, so please feel free to reach out. I would love to hear from you guys. And one last thing, guys. It would really mean the world if you guys would like the video and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming videos. I have a lot of new content in the works and I'm very excited to get it out to you guys, so stay tuned. As always, thanks for watching. Cloudy Haze out. See you in the next one. I just need to know what's on your mind. Tell me what you need and